What is it?
It's a magnet. Put it in your t-shirt and this will go over.
Oh, I see. Like underneath? Just like that?
Yeah.
Natiravanachari Vanachari Jaya Radha Mama Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhara Hari Shodanandana Brajjana Ranjana Vanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord, personality of Godhead, I offer respectful obeisances unto you. Narayana Namastyam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatyasam Tato Jayam Uduirayet. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nastaprayesh Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Ruttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. By regular attendance classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotees, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. In the darkness of ignorance, my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer respectful obeisances unto him. Okay, so today we're reading from Canto 7, Chapter 9, Texts 8 through 10. So what's the general form that devotees will collectively read the first two verses and then...
Yeah, two verses here, and then we'll focus on the 10th verse. Okay.
Text 8. Prahlad Maharaj prayed, how is it possible for me, who have been born in a family of Asuras, to offer suitable prayers to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Even until now, all the demigods of Brahma and all the saintly persons could not satisfy the Lord by streams of excellent words. Only such persons are very qualified, being in the mode of godliness. Then what is to be said of me? I am not at all qualified.
an aristocratic family, beauty, austerity, education, sensory expertise, luster, influence, physical strength, diligence, intelligence, and yogic power. But I think that even by all these qualifications, one can satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, one can satisfy the Lord simply by devotional service. Gajendra did this, and thus the Lord was satisfied with him.
If a Brahmana has all 12 of the Brahminical qualifications, as they are stated in a book called Sanat Sujata, but is not a devotee and is averse to the lotus feet of the Lord, he is certainly lower than a devotee who is a eater but who has dedicated everything, mind, words, activities, wealth, and life to the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee is better than such a Brahmana because the devotee can purify his whole family, whereas the so-called Brahmana, position of false prestige, cannot purify even himself.
So we'll read the verse now. Viprad visad guna yutad aravinda napa. Padaravinda vimukat svapacham varishtam. Manye tararpita manovachena hitarta. Pranam punati sakulam natu burimanaha.
Viprad sadguna yutad arvindanabha.
Viprad visad gunayutad aravindanabha.
Padaravinda vibhukat swapacham varishtam.
Paramavinda vimukhat svapacham varishtam.
Manyeta darpita manovachane hitartha.
Manye tadarpita manovachani hitarta. Pranam punati sakulam natu burimana. Padaravinda vimukhat svapacham varishtam. Manye tadarpita manovachani hitarta. Pranam punati sakum natu burimana. Viprad visad gunayunatad aravinda napa.
Padaravinda vimukhat svapacham varishtam.
Manye tadarpita manovachane hitartha.
Pranam punati sakulam natu burimana.
Punat saikalanam nachuripana.
Viprad vishad gunayutar aravindanabha.
Viprad visad gunayutad aravinda naba. Padaravinda vimukhat svapacham varishtam.
Manye tadarpita manovachane hitartha.
Tadarpita manovachini hitarta. Pranati sakulam natu burimana. Translation. If a Brahmana has all 12 Brahminical qualifications, as they are stated in the book called Sanat Sujata, but is not a devotee and is averse to the lotus feet of the Lord, he is certainly lower than a devotee who is a dog eater, but who has dedicated everything, mind, words, activities, wealth, and life to the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee is better than such a Brahmana, because the devotee can purify his whole family, whereas the so-called Brahmana in a position of false prestige cannot purify himself. Do we take turns reading the purport? Please go ahead, Prabhu.
Here is a statement by Prahlad Maharaj, one of the 12 authorities, regarding distinction between a devotee and a Brahmana, expert in Karma Kanda or Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. There are 4 Varnas and 4 Ashramas, which divide human society. But the central principle is to become a first-class pure devotee. It is said in the Haribhakta Sudhojya. Everyone together?
Bhagavad Bhakti Hinasya Ti Shastram Japasaha Aprana Shaiva Dehasya Mandanam Lokaranjanam.
If one is born in high family like that of a Brahmana, Kshatriya or Vaishya, but is not a devotee of the Lord, all his good qualifications as a Brahmana, Kshatriya or Vaishya are null and void. Indeed, they are considered decorations of a dead body.
In this verse, Prahlad speaks of the Vipras, the learned Brahmanas. The learned Brahmana is considered best among divisions of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. But a devotee born in a low Chandala family is better than such Brahmanas. Not to speak of the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and others. A devotee is better than anyone, for he is on a transcendental position on the Brahman platform.
Mam chayo vibhacharena bhakti yogena sevate saguna samityaitan brahma bhuyaya kalpate.
One who engages in full devotional service, who does not fall down in any circumstance, at once transcends the modes of material nature and thus comes to the level of Brahman. Bhagavad Gita 14.26. The 12 qualifications of a first-class Brahmana, as stated in the book called Sanat Sujata, are as follows.
Jnanam cha chatyam cha dhamma shrutam cha hi amatsarya ishtitikshana suya yajnas cha danam sadriti samascha mahavrata vadasa brahmanasya.
The European and American views in the Krishna consciousness movement are sometimes accepted as Brahmanas, but the so-called caste Brahmanas are very much envious of them. In answer to such envy, Prahlad Maharaj says that one who has been born in Brahmana family but is falsely proud of his prestigious position cannot even purify himself, not to speak of his family. Whereas if a Chandala, a low-born person, is a devotee and has fully surrendered onto the lotus feet of the Lord, he can purify his entire family. We have had actual experiences of how Americans and Europeans, because of their full Krishna consciousness, have purified their whole families. So much so that a mother of a devotee, at the time of her death, inquired about Krishna with her last breath. Therefore, it is theoretically true and has been practically proven that a devotee can give the best service to his family, his community, his society, and his nation. The foolish accuse a devotee of the principle of escapism, but actually the fact is that a devotee is the right person to elevate his family. A devotee engages everything in the service of Lord, and therefore he is always exalted.
Jai. So thank you very much, devotees, for allowing me to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam today. It's my first time giving a class, so please provide your prayers and bless that I can speak something which is of value and of meaning. Start off by reading the verse. So I'll read the verse again. If a Brahmana, all 12 of the Brahminical qualifications, as they are stated in the book called Sanat Sujata, but is not a devotee and is averse to the lotus feet of the Lord, he is certainly lower than a devotee who is a dog eater, but who has dedicated everything, mind, activities, wealth, and life to the Supreme Lord. Such a devotee is better than Samana, because the devotee can purify his whole family, whereas the so-called Brahmana, in a position of false prestige, cannot purify even himself. So this topic of Brahmana and Vaishnava is something that has been discussed thoroughly in our, Guru Parampara. Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 4, text 13 says, Chatur Varnam Mayashtam Guna Karma Vibasaha Tasya Arkartam Apimam Vidi Arktya Avyayam. That according to the 3 modes of material nature and the work prescribed by them, the 4 divisions of human society have been prescribed by me. So this is a direct process that Krishna has provided. And what is the process that he's instituted? The Varnashram Dharma system. We know Brahmanas are considered the intellectual class. They perform certain activities, giving and accepting charity, performing sacrifices, doing deity worship and teaching deity worship as well. And then we know that the Kshatriyas, who are often affiliated with the mode of passion, are the administrators. They're responsible for protection. And then the Vaishyas are responsible, namely for agriculture, trade, and so forth. And then the Shudras, the laborer class, are responsible for, taking care of all other systems of society. So this is something that Krishna has emphasized as a way of giving everyone an opportunity to work according to their natural propensity, but at the same time, allowing people to come to the ultimate stage of Krishna consciousness. And what we've seen, especially in the advent of Kali Yuga, is that this Varnashram system has kind of finished over time. And if we read the first canto, we see a specific pastime that enables that. Does anyone remember what specifically took place in the front of the Bhagavatam, where Prabhupada mentions that the societal orders are no longer really occurring as it used to?
I think it was after Shringi cursed Parikshit. That's when the society started degrading. I think that point where the classes started degrading.
That's right. So really nice. Thank you, Devanshi, for summarizing that. So that's right. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, we see that Maharaj Parikshit was unduly cursed by a son of a Brahmin, Shringi. He heard that Maharaj Parikshit had placed a snake around the neck of the Brahmin. And for such a small minor offense, what ended up happening is Shringi got very offended. And then he placed the snake, or he heard about the placement of the snake on his father, and just a whole bunch of abominable words towards Maharaj Parikshit to the point of cursing him. He likened Maharaj Parikshit, who's a pure devotee, who's putting the duty as a Kshatriya to take care of society, but he said that he's like a crow or a wasp at the door. And we know that the Kshatriyas are responsible for uplifting society and protection, but those words were really hurtful. And at the end of the day, what ended up happening is gradually the Varnashram system and the respect for all the different societal orders have become diminished over time. And if we look back into our own lineage, this thing that the parampara has really dealt with, with great adversity. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur had so many different debates about Brahmana and Vaishnava, and to the point where he was on a parikram in Navadvip, and there were some caste Brahmins who had got some thugs to hurl stones and boulders at Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, almost to the point of taking his life away. And then we hear of Srila Prabhupada and the difficulty that he had endured to uplift everyone, i.e., or the position of Brahmana status, but not everyone was favorable to it. And then we see the mood of someone like Bhakti Vinod Thakur, who was wondering, when will he see people from all over the world chanting the names of Jai Sachindana? So this is the mood of our acharyas, that in this present age, they understand the importance of bringing everyone to the highest level of spiritual consciousness. And that's what a Vaishnava is all about. They're not looking at the birth, the caste, or the religion, but they understand that by the practice of sadhana bhakti and devotional service, that one can come to the highest platform. We see that Lord Chaitanya had put Haridas Thakur in the position of Namacharya despite being born in a Mohammedan family. So this is what the mood of the acharyas are, and this is what we are trying to devotees of the Lord as well. Now, in present day ISKCON, we're trying to imbibe the same mood that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Bhakti Vinod Thakur, and Srila Prabhupada had instilled. If we have activities, all the devotees here, we go out on Sankirtan, we're meeting people from all walks of life, but we're asking them to please take part in chanting of the holy name. We offer prasadam. In July we perform Radha Yatra at Central Island, and that's an opportunity for everyone, the general public, to hear the holy names of the Lord, to take prasadam, to dance and sing in kirtan as well. And there's so many different activities. Most recently, we celebrated the campaign of Bhadra Purnima. And this is a worldwide campaign where we're looking to give everyone the Srimad Bhagavatam and share it across the world by setting goals. So this is the mood that we're imbibing in our present day of sharing Krishna consciousness in the mood of the previous acharyas. Now, this verse also talks about how someone, regardless of their birth, has the potency to purify the entire family. And that's quite interesting how Prabhupada says that even, he observed a devotee fully surrendered to the Lord was so potent that even his mother had inquired about Krishna at the last breath. And that made me reflect, how is this so potent that just by taking up devotional service that the entire family becomes purified. And, we talked about Parikshit Maharaj and the past of Shringi. There's another verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam on Canto 1, chapter 19, 35. If we're able to flip to that verse, it talks a little bit more about the purification process. So if we can just go into that and we can read the translation and the purport as well.
Could you move your microphone to the other side?
With this one?
No, the button.
Oh, okay. Let me see, I think I got it. Very complicated. Is it good now? Okay. Okay. So, do we have the verse up, Prabhu? 35, please. Yeah. Would someone like to read? I don't know who to select. We'll let Dinal. Prabhu, go ahead.
Translation. Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is very dear to the sons of King Pandu, has accepted me as one of those relatives just to please his great cousins and brothers. You read the purport?
Yes, please.
Okay. My eyesight has gotten worse. A pure and exclusive devotee of the Lord serves his family interests more dexterously than others, who are attached to illusory. Can you stop scrolling? Illusory family affairs. Generally, people are attached to family matters, and the whole economic impetus of human society is moving under the influence of family perfection. Such deluded persons have no information that one can render better service to the family by becoming a devotee of the Lord. The Lord gives special protection to the family members and descendants of a devotee, even though such members are non-devotees. Maharaj Prahlad was a great devotee of the Lord, but his father Hiranyakashipu was a great atheist and declared enemy of the Lord. But despite all this, Hiranyakashipu was awarded salvation to his being the father of Prahlad Maharaj. The Lord is so kind that he gives all protection to the family members of his devotee, and thus the devotee has no need to bother about his family members, even if one leaves such family members aside to discharge devotional service. Maharaj Yudhishthira and his brothers were the sons of Kunti, the paternal aunt of Lord Krishna, and Maharaj Parikshit admits the patronage of Lord Krishna because of his being the only grandson of the great Pandavas.
Thank you. So here we read about how the Lord Nrsimhadev had, provided salvation to Hiranyakashipu. We read about how Maharaj Parikshit is appreciating the descendants of the Pandavas and how the Lord had provided his mercy by allowing him to come closer as he was cursed. And then we read in the purport that Srila Prabhupada is talking about how, even one of his own disciples was in a position where his mother was inquiring about Krishna at his last breath. So out of all these three examples, what's the common element here? What is it that we see that allows Krishna to reciprocate in this way?
Devotion. Krishna feels the family members of the devotee. the one who has done the devotional service.
Dinel?
And also that lineage and everything, your family status does not matter as long as you render devotional service.
Yes. Anyone else?
Surrender and devotion.
Yeah, I think everyone summed it up really nicely. That Krishna, this verse is so amazing because, despite whether you're Maharaj Parikshit, appeared in the same descendant where Krishna, appeared as a family member, or just someone practicing Krishna consciousness, or even someone like Prahlad Maharaj who was born in the family of demons, what's there is that Krishna is attracted by love, and that's what really allows him to reciprocate. And the story of Bhagavatam, there are so many different pastimes where the Lord is completely mesmerized and enamored by the love of his devotees. Can anyone just, maybe for a discussion here, what are some examples where we see where Krishna is really overwhelmed by the love of his devotees?
Vidur and Vidan.
Can you just describe a bit more, Prabhu?
Like Duryodhana invited Krishna, but he chose to go to Vidur's place, and Vidur's wife offered him
Banana peel.
Yes, bananas. I guess she ate the bananas and then she gave him the garbage stuff, right?
No. She mistakenly gave him the banana peels.
Yeah, banana peels. And he happily accepted that. Out of love, she was just like, she did not know exactly what she was doing, but still, Krishna accepted that.
Yes. We'll just go.
From the Shaka, she sings Sudama's love.
Yeah, that was actually one of the ones I had in mind too. But we do not, coordinate on that. Anyone else? It's Abhinav, Prabhu?
I was going to say Sudama too.
Sudama?
Krishna was overwhelmed with Gopi's love for Krishna.
Yes?
Also, Rukmini Devi, she just, for Krishna, married her because she loved him so much.
Right.
Since the mother is coming, so I'll see Mother Yashoda.
Yes. What? Devanshi?
Also in the avatar of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was really involved with the Maharaj Pratap Prabhu's prayers when he prayed to Lord Chaitanya in the park. He was explaining the Gopi Geet, and then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got very ecstatic.
Nice. Any other examples from devotees?
Lord Raman Shabri. He did not go to Brahmana's place, but he just looking for Shabri's house and then accepted the base that she offered.
Right.
The Muchi base.
Dhruva for his father.
True for his father, yeah.
Dhruva Maharaj's love.
Yeah. Rohan Prabhu?
I was saying the same thing.
So these are all countless examples from Srimad Bhagavatam of how devotees have natural desire to show love for the Lord, that Krishna was enamored. He reciprocated in so many ways. And this example that we see here is just another example of the Lord reciprocates by purifying the family members. Now, Devanshi touched on an important point that, the gopis, who were, I guess I gave, but, which of the devotees exhibited the highest form of love to Krishna? Srimati Radharani. And there was no tinge of any motivation in that. Does everyone know of the pastime where Krishna pretended that he had a headache?
Yes. The dust of the
Yeah. Would anyone like to speak about that one?
So one time, Narad Muni, he was doing his bhajans and he came to Shvetadi, and then he asked Lord Narayan, he came to Lord Krishna and then he asked Lord Krishna that, who is your greatest worshipper? Who loves you the most? And then Lord Krishna said, I will tell you this, but first you have to do something for me. He said, I have a really bad headache right now, and the only this headache can be cured is if a devotee of me, give the dust of her lotus feet for me, and if I put it on my head, I will get cured of this headache. And then Narad Muni goes to everyone. Like, he goes from all the 3 planets, from Bhulok to 20 planets to hell. Like, everyone, whoever he asks, he says, I have to go to hell. Like, not like this. Everybody's saying that, Lord Krishna is in pain. But and then he says, what's the solution? And then when Narad Muni tells them that you need to give the dust of your lotus feet, he said, are you crazy? Like Lord Krishna is like the supreme personality of Godhead. Like I will burn in hell if I ever do this. And then Narada Muni, he comes to Vrindavan, and then he meets the gopis there. And then when he tells them that, oh Lord Krishna is in so much pain and he needs the dust of devotees, as soon as gopis they heard it, they were like, oh, for sure. So what they go to Yamuna, they walk on the sand, all of them, and then fills pots and pots of that sand in which they walked in, and then they give this to Lord Krishna now. And then when Narad Muni asks, aren't you afraid to go? And then he's like, if by doing this Krishna's headache can be cured, and if he's pleased, I don't mind going to hell either.
Thank you. Wow, that is such a beautiful pastime. So this is an example of true love. You know, Krishna's complete. He says in the Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvas prabhavyo, that I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. He has everything. He doesn't need anything material for that matter. What he wants is that love, that unconditional love that Devanshi was describing in terms of the gopis. And you know, we hear in Nectar Devotion, Anya bilatya shunyam jnana karmada navritam anukulyena krishnano siyam bhaktir uchyate, that we should perform devotional service, transcendental loving without any material gain or mental speculation. And through this practice of Krishna consciousness, we can get to that point where we see ourselves fully surrendered and we get the mercy of the Lord. The question may arise to ourselves, how do we develop that love? And this is where we really want to put what Prabhupada had given us into practice. You know, we learned that there's 64 limbs of bhakti and that there's 5 limbs that are first and foremost. Does anyone, know what those 5 limbs of bhakti are? Abhinav Prabhu?
Reading Bhagavatam, staying in the Dham, chanting the holy name, eating prasad. No, associating with these. There's one more I'm forgetting.
Yeah. Does anyone know what the final one is?
Offering, worshipping a deity?
Yes. Out of the 64 limbs of bhakti, there's emphasis on these 5. If you look at this practice of Krishna consciousness and this program that Srila Prabhupada has instituted, all these 5 examples are covered. Hearing Sri Bhagavatam, we're doing that now, and all of you do that on a daily basis. Chanting Hare Krishna, as part of the morning program, there's an opportunity to perform japa, chanting 16 rounds that we commit to. Hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting Hare Krishna, living in a place of pilgrimage. So Nirumuna Dham is not different from a place of pilgrimage because we have Shri Shri Radha Kishore Gopinath and we have the presence of all the senior Vaishnavas and the devotees here. Serving this is something that we do day in and day out. We render so much service. I know all are doing this service full time and are looking at so many different ways to take service and offer service as well. Worshipping the deity forms of the Lord, have Shri Shri Gaura Nitai, Shri Shri Radha Kishore Gopinath, and Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra. So Srila Prabhupada has instituted this program almost in a simple capsule that you can just take, just like someone takes vitamins each day to feel nourished. That by staying in the ashram and performing these 5 limbs of bhakti, that we're performing sadhana bhakti in a way that through gradual progression, through enthusiasm and endeavor, we feel our heart changing. And in that mood, we can develop that natural affinity, that spontaneity that we all aspire for, where we can give our full hearts to Krishna and see the mercy that he provides and allows us to reciprocate as well. So this is, one way in which we can show our love to Krishna. And practically speaking, another way that we can display our real love for Krishna is partaking in the Sankirtan movement. Because what makes Sankirtan different from everything else is there's an added element of us taking a risk. We're going into the unknown and we may not know what may happen. So in the same way that Devanshi was reciting last time of the gopis, they were willing to take a risk without, understanding what the implication may be, but they knew that Krishna was going to be protected. In that same way that when we go out and distribute books, we may not know who we may enter, but at the same time, we know that the Lord is going to protect us. In that way, in doing so, we can develop our full love for the Lord. And, just practically speaking, I've seen all the devotees here in the ashram vibe this mood. You're all living full-time here, rendering service day in and day out. I know that now we're doing book distribution, 4 times a week that day is going out? So, yeah, it's amazing. So all of you are following in the footsteps of partaking in Lord Chaitanya's mission. And in doing so, you're embodying what's being described in this verse, that Srila Prabhupada, the Guru Parampara, had this mood of uplifting everyone, regardless of their birth. When we go out on book distribution, we don't know who we're going to meet. When we do programs like BYS, we're seeing the impact of those chanting the holy name. It's not that it's based on birth, race, or religion, but people feel that they realize that there's something more powerful, and Krishna consciousness is that. It's the eternal consciousness of the soul, and it can be revived as practice. So we're following in that mood and developing that unconditional love that we want to have to see the Lord. And in doing so, we're pleasing the Guru Parampara and following the struggles that Srila Prabhupada had taken, at the age of 69 to come on board the Jaladuta, suffering many heart attacks, but seeing that his guru wanted him to preach in the West. And despite undergoing so many hardships, we're seeing the effects of what he's done. And I know for myself personally that it's because of Srila Prabhupada that I'm getting the opportunity to speak in front of all of you right now. And I'm eternally grateful, and taking part in the book distribution campaign. We'll have the Prabhupada Marathon starting soon, and there'll be so many opportunities to take part and get to that point of achieving that love that we're all looking for. The Lord will surely reciprocate, like the way that we've seen through these examples. So thank you very much, devotees. That's what I wanted to share. And we'll spend a few minutes for any questions or reflections that anyone may have. Yes, Antariksh Prabhu.
We were talking about Brahmanical qualities, that even if somebody, right now we are trying to be devotees, we are practicing right now, and we are more focused on developing those Brahmanical qualities. Someone already has 12 Brahmanical qualities, and still, is it possible to still not be closer to Krishna, or is there any possibility after, despite having those, you do not like Krishna?
So there's an emphasis, so that there's 3 modes of nature, like you described, Prabhu, like goodness, passion, and ignorance. And the mode of goodness is what the guna that allows us to come closer to Krishna. Because in that state, we can develop knowledge. We also have that sense of happiness, and our senses are a bit more controlled. But it's not the complete end. Krishna says that one should transcend the modes of nature. So one may have Brahmanical qualities, they may be situated in the goodness, but ultimately we want to get to that point of unalloyed goodness, because in that state there's no mix of the other mode, whereas in the mode of goodness there can still be the mode of passion or is present as well. But in that mode of goodness, it's transcendental, and we're able to understand that we're devotees of the Lord. There's no motivation behind that. So this verse that we read just describes that there can be a sense of false prestige, that if one is, by birth proud of their Brahmanical status, but they may not be necessarily devotees of the Lord. But the emphasis is placed that we're not so caught up what one is by birth, but that the culture, the qualities can be acquired, and in that way, one can gradually elevate themselves to that point. So ultimately, the Brahmanical status, the mode of goodness, but we want to go beyond that and reach that Sura Sattva transcendental platform.
Another question, Prabhu. You talked about Varnashram. In Varnashram, we have 4 classes, and we know that Brahmins and Kshatriyas, they go through, what do we call it? they live life as Brahmanis and then they transition to Grihastha and then Grihastha Vanpras and then to Sannyas. I mean, how about Shudras? Do they go through the same process?
So I think one important thing to just emphasize here, Prabhu, is like in this present age, we say that we're all Shudras to one extent because of the age of Kali. So we're just trying to practice this emphasis of Krishna consciousness in a way that we can get to that point. In the past, where Varshram system was properly followed, there were ways that, according to one's nature, those in the Shudra are generally identified with the mode of ignorance, but at the same time, they're rendering service to the higher classes, and in doing so, they're able to, get the benefit of, their practice as well. I'm not, I don't know all the details of Varnashram system, and I know that it's a very complicated subject. We can research a little bit more, but one thing that I would emphasize in the age is that we're not too caught up on the actual visions, but that we know that in the practice of Krishna consciousness, regardless of where we are, we have that capability to uplift ourselves as well. And in the Bhagavatam, we actually see in the first canto, like Sutta Goswami, he makes an emphasis that he himself was not a Brahmin, he was of a mixed caste, but that he had the association of Sukadev Goswami when he was reciting Bhagavatam, and he also had the presence of all the sages of Naimisharanya, that he gained benefit of their association. We also know how Narada Muni got to his position as well. He was in the association of all the exalted devotees, and by doing so, he was able to elevate himself as well. So the main emphasis is that we should place ourselves in the association of exalted devotees and benefit from their presence to uplift ourselves.
I don't know, I was confused, that's why I asked. I thought maybe Shudras would go through the same process and then maybe they also become sannyasi in the end, and that's how they die. That I was confused. Another question about Parikshit Maharaj, and I forgot the Rishi's name. Shonik Rishi. Parikshit Maharaj was, when we read the Katha, it feels just like he just got so impatient that he just kind of, put a snake around his
Shringi became impatient.
So it was Parikshit Maharaj who did this thing.
Oh, sorry, yes, and Shringi, yes.
Shringi's reaction was normal, like a Brahmin was insulted, and the Brahmin who was doing his sadhana, and unnecessarily without, any reason, the act that Parikshit Maharaj did, I think that was kind of genuine reaction that his son had to do. That's why. At the same time, Parikshit Maharaj was saved by Brahmastra, and then just the Brahman's curse was so strong that he literally had to rush to know the truth of life.
Yes, Prabhu. Yes. So this is an important point. We should see that this pastime of Maharaj Parikshit traveling and being cursed by Shringi is all happening due to the will of the Lord. Maharaj Parikshit, he's a pure devotee. He's a Kshatriya, and he knows how Varnashram is followed, that he would not deliberately go about and insult a Brahmin. But Krishna had created the situation that he wanted the opportunity of the Srimad Bhagavatam to be recited, and he also wanted his devotees to be glorified. So he created this incident to see how a devotee like Maharaj Parikshit is so exalted that when this happened, he took advantage of the opportunity and said, I'm not going to do anything else but just Srimad Bhagavatam for 7 days, without fasting as well. And if we go into some of the purports in that section, I think Prabhupada makes the point. This is happening in the will of the Lord, but at the same time happening, is there some reaction that, Shringi would have endured? And Prabhupada makes the point that he was a young boy, excused for his offense. His father perfectly, this was something that was minor, and it was not something that was a big thing at the end of the day. That this is both, Shringi's father and Maharaj Parikshit are transcendentalists. Their ultimate goal is to go back, to the spiritual world, and they're not, they're fully surrendered. They're not in that point of being inimical. Actually, the reference is made that when I think Shringi's father went to Maharaj Parikshit to explain the situation, that Maharaj Parikshit actually became embarrassed at how apologetic the father was, and that just shows the humility. Imagine someone had cursed you to die, but at the same time you feel guilty that someone is coming in that way. So this is just the pastimes that are happening according to the will, demonstrate the utter humility that these devotees like Maharaj Parikshit have, and give us that inspiration that if there's some calamity in our life, what is it that we're going to do? Are we going to, be morose and, just hate the world, or are we going to really take it as the Lord's mercy and go deeper into our spiritual life as well? And that's our practice that we're doing day in and day out, is to kind of frame our mind, our consciousness, so that we can position ourselves to go back home, back to Godhead.
Prabhu, thank you so much for a wonderful lecture. First, I mentioned it kind of like 2 times, that it was not a major offense, but if we look like it in a practical way, then if somebody puts a snake in Raja's head, I'll be just really mad. I'll say them or something like
We should
that.
try it next time.
Also, we hear that like if something is done to us, that's what was happened. Like we should just tolerate it. If somebody is just doing bad with the devotees, we should not stand quiet at all. So I think he was also right at that point, right? Isn't it?
I think that's a really good question. I think we should see that. So one thing is, you mentioned that as devotees we should tolerate when something takes place, and the importance is that we should also see what Maharaj Parikshit's position was as well. That he was sent by the Lord, or he was put in a position by the Lord where he performed this activity. But at the end of the day, this is going back to just happening according to the Lord's will as well. So this is something that Krishna had allowed to take place, and it is, from an external standpoint, can be seen as something that was a little bit offensive or hurtful, but at the same time, we know that, as Prabhupada mentions, this is what started Kali Yuga. In the past, if these types of activities may have taken place, a higher level of spirituality that was present. We heard that in Satya Yuga there's about 100%, and then it gradually decreases by 25% each time around. So, my understanding is that in the past, even if these types of misunderstandings took place, the reaction was different. But at this point in time, because Kali Yuga was being ushered in, the reaction took place as well, and it led to, the events. Any other questions, please? Yes, Najmi.
So I was wondering, how and why does the jiva develop false prestige, and does it exist in a pure form in this?
That is a very deep subject matter. Would anyone like to speak on that? So it was a 2-question. It was how does the jiva develop false prestige?
And then the second one is, does prestige exist in a pure form in the spiritual world?
Right. So maybe regarding the first question, we know that through this practice of Krishna consciousness, it's about reviving our dormant nature in the heart, that we are really Krishna consciousness in nature, but due to the association of matter, when we come in touch with this material nature, that we develop this false prestige. The modes of Krishna, he says, Daivi Hiesha Gunamaya Mama Maya Duratyayam Mam E Prabhadyante Mayam Eta Tarantite. That this divine energy of mine is difficult to overcome, but those who surrender unto me can overcome it. So the jiva, as soon as they come in contact and they're influenced by the material energy, they develop this false prestige. And we've taken swords in this world in different forms and influenced continually by the modes of nature. We see maybe in our own day-to-day life, there may be times that we're more in the mode of goodness, sometimes more in the mode of passion. And this is all a result of us being in contact with the material energy. But this practice of Krishna consciousness allows us to eliminate that false prestige and to go beyond the modes as well. What was your second question, Ishmi?
Does it exist in a pure form in the spiritual world?
Does
Yeah.
Riva? Yes, please.
I could try, but I think the prestige and pride that exists in the spiritual world is related to Krishna. It's like pride in all the souls that are like, I'm serving Krishna, I am Krishna's. And that becomes like a perverted version of pride in the material world where we take pride in ourselves or we feel prestige in ourselves.
In Nectar of Devotion, there is a chapter in which every single emotion of how it is felt in the spiritual world is explained. So maybe we can refer to that. And I'm not sure about the chapter.
Thank you. It's a really good question. Any other comments? Antariksh? Monil Prabhu, yes?
Prabhu, I had a question. You were mentioning that we are really fortunate that we are getting a chance to stay in the ashram, and it's beautiful staying in the ashram. You have a lot of opportunities of services. You get to serve devotees, but it also comes with a risk. Staying in the ashram, you are also to commit some offense against a devotee, and you also see that there is a lot of not a lot, but sometimes there's some. There's a fight or conflict between devotees also. So how do you protect yourselves from committing an offense, or in general, how do you protect yourself?
Yeah. Well, I can share from just my own experience or just what I've heard from other devotees is, you're right, we're all individual souls and we're all going through this practice of purification. So now there's going to be moments where we may not see eye to eye, and that it's important that when we're put in these situations that, like Amala Harinam Prabhu was saying, that we don't react immediately. The senses, Krishna tells Arjuna, the senses are so strong and impetuous that if something happens, rather than reacting, we should the mode of goodness is to take time and process it. So we should just try to understand what is it that took place. And then at that point, we should, in a Brahminical way, we should have a proper conversation with the devotee, and hopefully that individual is able to listen. As we're expressing ourselves, we should present it in a palatable way that they understand it, because the sound vibration is very strong, and if we speak in a way that's accusatory or very hurtful, it can really take away the essence. So we should be mindful of our interactions and speak to individuals when we're and we should see that at the end of the day, that in the broader picture, that everyone is sent by the Lord to perform devotional service, and that devotees are very special. Krishna says that it's very rare that one takes to this path. We should always have that perspective that these are special souls that the Lord has sent, and the more that through our own practice of sadhana bhakti, that we chant sincerely, we hear the Srimad Bhagavatam, then naturally it will emanate in our behavior. And despite any calamities, anything, we remain calm and equipoised. And I think there was an earlier verse where it says, the enemies at the end of the day are coming from our own self, the mind. It's not really coming from others. So if we come to that point where we're able to aid ourselves and have that level of humility, it's going to naturally attract the same reaction from others as well. So I think it starts with working on ourselves on that own level of purification. But even when these things happen, we know how to handle it by just being calm, equipoised. And so that's why there's so much emphasis on hearing each other. Yes.
when it happens with the devotees, the ashram, like, we should learn, we should hear something in the Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
Shravan, like Parishit Maharaj Shravan in that.
Right, right. And that's why there's so much emphasis on living in the ashram, like being a brahmachari or something. It's a level of purification. Even in Hasta ashram, there's so much we have to learn from each other, and it's our tolerance stronger, it makes our good quality, it makes us purified and allows us to get to a point where we can progress further. So this is actually a test, for us to make the most of living amongst one another, and we'll come out on top and just allow us to deal with the different modes when they're at play. Because even when we step out to do Sankirtan, or if we're going to the office or working, there's many different dealings, and we've seen that people can react in so many adverse ways, but when people see how a devotee is calm and equipoised, they naturally become attracted, and there's a part of them that will say, like, I want to be like them as well. So we can lead by example and inspire others to take to this process. I think we're past the time. I don't think there's no other questions we conclude. So thank you very much, devotees. Really appreciate being given the opportunity to